Personally, big fan of cyber risk score. If for no other reason, my cyber risk score is a lot higher than my personal credit score. So always good to see that flash up on my phone. Next up this afternoon, just to talk to us about the challenges of cyber crime and also the law enforcement response to that, the director of the West Midlands Cyber Resilience Centre at West Midlands Police. Please welcome Alison Hurst.
Hello, good afternoon everybody. I was a bit disappointed with that introduction because Richard got some whoops. I just got a few claps, but I won't take that personally. It's lovely to be here, nice to see you all. So I'm Superintendent Alison Hurst. So I've got 25 years policing experience with West Midlands Police. And as of last summer, I moved over to the Cyber Resilience Centre, which is a part of the Regional Organised Crime Unit. So today I'm going to talk about not just my experience with setting up and establishing the Cyber Resilience Centre, but also I'm going to talk widely about the whole of the network across the country and across Wales in terms of what we're all about, what we're trying to achieve and how we are trying to help businesses. So let's start from the beginning then. So first of all, the structure of the presentation is going to be starting with the threats and challenges that cybercrime and the threat of cybercrime presents to businesses. So our main focus really is on micro businesses and SMEs, but it's about the larger organisations helping the smaller ones. Secondly, also about the journey in terms of law enforcement, so cyber police and history and Team Cyber UK. So we've learned as a police service that we can't tackle cybercrime alone, we can't do it in isolation and we can't investigate our way out of this situation. And we do need to work in partnership with other organisations across the private and the academic sector in order to work more innovatively and look at different ways of working to resolve these issues. And finally, I'd just like to talk about the Cyber Resilience Network. So obviously, I just mentioned the West Mids was established last July. So I'd like to talk about the current position and where we are with that, but also the wider network across the whole of the country too. So what we do know is, in terms of starting with the threats and challenges, so we have got a very limited threat picture. So we know that a lot of cybercrime goes under-reporting, and actually some people don't even realise that they've been subject to cybercrime. So in terms of our statistics through the police, what we do know is that 1.7 million computer misuse crimes occurred last year, and that's the year ending up until December 2020, according to the British Crime Survey. However, we also know that only 30,000 offences were reported to Action Fraud, and that has been a 20% year-on-year increase over the last 4 to 5 years. But still, as you'll see, there's a lot of under-reporting going, so a lot of this cybercrime actually isn't coming to light, and so we really don't know what the current picture looks like. 4 in 10 businesses identified a cybersecurity breach or attack as well, and that's up until April 2021. So as I can say, that's less than 50% of businesses actually identified it and have gone on to report it. So it's no surprise really that cybercrime has been identified as our biggest criminal threat to UK businesses, and that is alongside counter-terrorism. So obviously we are dealing with something very big here, and we do know that partly the challenges that we need to overcome is this under-reporting and obviously not knowing the true intelligence picture in relation to it. We've only got limited intelligence coming through. So then on the other side of this, we have got a consistently changing threat. So it is great that the UK is at the forefront of technology, but criminals are always trying to move forwards too, sadly, with attack vectors. So we also know that cyber tools are very easily accessible through the internet. So this is constantly evolving, and obviously we're always trying to keep up at pace in relation to this evolving picture. We also know that ransomware is one of our biggest problems at the moment. So nearly 50% of cybercrimes are ransomware attacks. So the focus for both local policing across the 43 forces, our regional organised crime units and also the NCA is to look at a collaborative approach in relation to ransomware. And then finally, the threat to SMEs and where to go for help. So as I can see over the last year, when I'm speaking to an awful lot of businesses across the West Midlands region, this is part of the problem. People don't know who to ask for help. It's been a previously unregulated market, so people haven't got the confidence to reach out and ask for help, and they're not really sure who to go to. So we also know that it's very complex in nature, cybercrime, and we do use an awful lot of jargon, and all this jargon needs to be demystified so the average business, SME or micro business can understand what we are talking about. It also can be, cybersecurity can be very expensive, it's cost prohibitive, so as for smaller businesses it can be a real barrier, and actually it might not be a priority for them, albeit we do know that the consequences can be catastrophic for businesses. So I suppose in terms of all of this, we're looking at a cyber resilience centre from a policing point of view. How can we help overcome some of these threats and challenges? What can we do to help the average business to both understand cybercrime, increase knowledge levels, and then obviously leading on from that to increase their resilience? So here's just a little bit of a journey in relation to where we've come from in relation to the policing of cybercrime and where we are now and where we'd like to move to moving forwards. So as you can see from that map, there are regional organised crime units across the country. 5 years ago, if you had been subject to cybercrime, it's highly likely that you wouldn't have even reported it to the police. If you had have done, I have to say, you may have got a response from Action Fraud, but it's very unlikely that you would have had any response at all from policing. So we've had to put a number of things in place as a result of that to try and increase our response in a coordinated way. So in 2014, each of those regional organised crime units you can see on that map, each of those geographies established a cybercrime team. Building on for that, the National Crime Agency also embedded cybercrime units at a national level, and each of our 43 police forces also had protect officers established. So even though we've worked a long way towards that, in 2017, when WannaCry occurred, we did have a very mixed response from policing still, so we wasn't there in 2017. We were still establishing a number of these teams. Although we were sort of like part-way through establishing the teams, what we found there wasn't a coordinated response in relation to it. So the actual reaction and response to WannaCry was very mixed across the whole of the country, really, and it was very inconsistent. And we had to learn from that, really. So what we have got in place now and what we've worked hard on over the last 4 years is actually getting protect officers for cybercrime in each of those 43 police forces, in each of the ROCUs from a regional level, and also in the NCA. So we now have a top-down tasking structure. If anything does occur in future, such as WannaCry, then we've got this in place in order to make sure we've got a coordinated strategic approach, which then runs from a national level right through to our local police forces in a consistent manner. However, obviously we've made a lot of movement in relation to the right direction, ensuring that we're all working together and working from the same page, but we've still got a long way to go, and we do recognise that, and we're constantly working to improve it. So, the Cyber Resilience programme then. So these were objectives, these were set in the latter end of 2019 in response to the threats and challenges that I've just spoken about and the issues that we see from a policing perspective in relation to how we can better tackle some of the cybercrime issues that we are seeing and the emerging trends and threats that we've seen. So first of all was to deliver a cyber resilience centre in every region in England and Wales. So we have achieved that now. The last one to go live is in London, and that is over the next 2 months. So that was due to be established in the autumn time. But every other region now has an established cyber resilience centre, and also Wales too. So each of the centres cover the regional organised crime unit geographies. So in the West Midlands, we have 4 police forces, as you'll probably know. We cover the same boundaries of those 4 police forces. We are a not-for-profit entity, and each of the resilience centres are exactly the same. So each of the centres are made up of a really unique partnership arrangement that includes policing, public sector, private sector partners, and we also work very closely with academia too. And the idea of the centres is to bridge the gap for smaller organisations between protect messaging and the offerings of large cybersecurity providers. So as I mentioned earlier, we now have this nice structure in relation to our top-down tasking. We have protect officers at a local, regional and national level. But what they're not able to do is offer longer-term support. So they are very good at the investigation of cybercrime. They're very good at the investigative response. However, what they can't do is we haven't got the resources available to provide that partnership working at the level that we'd like to, but also that long-term support for SMEs and those businesses moving forwards. So that's something that the Cyber Resilience Centres can provide. It's additional resourcing in order to do that. We have a number of partners involved that also help us to relate to businesses of all sizes across the region. So we know we can communicate with them and we know how we can help them. Another objective was to provide NCSC-approved cybersecurity products and services. So we are an amplification partner for those, and we can help deliver their messages and support businesses with the latest consistent messaging that's coming out from the NCSC. And we're also able to provide accessible and affordable services to the SME community. So we can do this by way of our student services. So this is my favourite part of the model, really. As a mum of 2 teenagers, we have recruited from 5 universities across the whole of the West Midlands region a cohort of students, and there are some really bright sparks amongst these students, and we are training them to provide cybersecurity services, obviously very intuitively supervised and quality assured at the end of it. But those students will be going out into businesses, understanding their vulnerabilities, and then providing services to address some of these issues that they're experiencing, but at more affordable costs. So that's a part of the model that we are developing. We have got the cohort of students in place, and that we are ready to receive referrals in relation to the student services. But it's just another option. I know Richard was speaking earlier on in relation to the affordability of some of the cybersecurity, but this just makes it more accessible for a lot of the micro businesses and smaller businesses that are unable to afford it otherwise. So what is a Cyber Resilience Centre? So I have just spoken about the setup of the Cyber Resilience Centres. So the resourcing of it, so as I said, I'm a superintendent. In each of those regions, we have got a policing superintendent to lead each of those centres. And we each act as the director of the Resilience Centre, which I have to say for me, with 25 years policing, has been a bit of a learning curve. Registering businesses, holding accounts, financial management, not really a strong point, but I've never had to do it in 25 years. But really interesting. So there's a police superintendent to lead. Then there'll also be a detective inspector who is the innovation manager. Michelle is sat in the audience up there to support myself. And we also have a communications manager, marketing officer too, in the setup of the structure. And we're looking to develop that further as we move forwards. In terms of the governance structure and the company setup, this is where we like to involve a number of different partners from across each of those sectors in order to make sure that we've got the right resources in place and the right skills in place. So we've got a steering group of founding partners. Within the West Midlands region, we've got a great steering group. We have public sector, private sector, academic, and also third sector, which is really important because each of those sectors obviously are subject to cybercrime at some point, unfortunately. So we have, for example, got KPMG, Mondelez, National Express, MetCloud as some of our founding partners, but also Children's Society in terms of third sector. So we've got a really mixed bunch of people who are knowledgeable in this area to help advise me in relation to the direction of the company and how we can better reach out to increase resilience of business. Next, sits under the steering group is the advisory group. So this is now at capacity. We meet on a quarterly basis and I chair these meetings. But again, we have got a good mix across all sectors. And actually, we've just recently recruited some more education representatives so we can really connect with that section too. But really, this is to help in terms of the business reach, so we can reach out to all sections of the business community, obviously not just policing, not just public, not just private, but a good array. So we've got some people that are really knowledgeable in relation to cybersecurity and others that aren't, which is equally as useful, really. Because sometimes when we talk in cyber jargon, a lot of people don't understand it. We need to simplify it. So actually, our advisory group can make sure that it keeps us on track in terms of keeping it very comprehensive in a format that we can communicate communicate that anybody would understand. And finally, we have our group of trusted partners. So these are, I spoke about really previously, it's been an unregulated marketplace. And from a policing perspective, previously we've been very reluctant to signpost and actually recommend people to provide services. However, the trusted partners are IASME accredited, each of those are, so they can provide Cyber Essentials and Cyber Essentials Plus. So we have a group of those, again, that meet on a quarterly basis. So when we're having one-to-one meetings with businesses, when we understand their vulnerabilities, we are confident to be able to recommend them to go to our trusted partners for help and support in relation to what they may need to increase their resilience. Moving on then to products and services. So we offer free core membership. That will involve a one-to-one meeting with the detective inspector to understand knowledge levels, to understand vulnerabilities, and not just really give a one-size-fits-all service. It's actually to understand the bespoke needs of the individual and the organisation that we are dealing with in order to make sure that we put the appropriate things in place. And student services. So we have got mentoring and support to engage with the businesses to deliver cybersecurity services, which I've touched upon at all. So we've got a cohort of 12 that are already sitting ready to provide cybersecurity services, but also to increase their employability moving forwards. And hopefully we'll see a few of these as the future of cyber in moving forwards. So what is a CRC? So this is the unique partnership arrangement that we have got in place in our cyber model. So firstly, what's in it for each of these people? So law enforcement, obviously, as a superintendent leading this, I think from a policing point of view, it is a trusted brand generally. It's good to have that brand. A lot of cyber products on the marketplace and cyber services aren't backed by government, they're not backed by policing. So actually straight away that can increase people's confidence in relation to seeking help really in relation to their vulnerabilities. And then private sector businesses. So as I mentioned, we've worked very closely with the private sector. So at every level of our governance structure, we have got our private sector partners that are closely working alongside us. So that really helps us in terms of tapping into those resources and skills base that we historically haven't had in policing, but we are able to, as a collective, provide that in a collaborative way. And then finally, academia. So this is, I suppose, there's two sides to this one, really. We now have recruited 100 students across the whole of the country, and we are working with a number of universities across the country. A lot of these students are ethical hackers already, but actually that's not mandatory. We also like students that are on just generic courses because we feel this is something they can learn. If they've got the right skills and qualities, then it's something they can learn, especially dealing with customers and having those communication skills too. But it's also the talent pipeline as well for the future, as I've mentioned. But not just in relation to our students and linking with academia, we also have a number of the education sector that are built into our governance structure, so we can really connect with the education sector along with the other sectors that we've already spoken about. So memberships and services. So I mentioned that we are a not-for-profit, so any investment into the centre and membership obviously goes back into the centre. We do offer a free core membership to anyone that is referred to us. And what that involves is a one-to-one meeting with our detective inspector to understand those vulnerabilities, but really then to signpost them to the appropriate people and to put them in touch, whether it's our student services, whether it's support from us and guidance, or whether actually it's signposting to one of our partners to be able to help them in terms of Cyber Essentials and Cyber Essentials Plus. But we also offer a package of membership options with bolt-on services. So I suppose it's from a policing point of view to understand exactly what an individual or a business might need, and then that's putting them in touch with the right people and making that happen for them, obviously in a trusted way. And just some examples there on the second part of the slide in terms of some of the services that our students do to provide. So we have got a catalogue of 8 services, But what we like to do is understand vulnerabilities first, understand those gaps, and then not just draw a one-size-fits-all, but do a bespoke package depending on needs, individual needs. So that's just some of the cybersecurity services that they do provide. As I say, if it's anything additional or added onto that we as a centre can't provide, then I'm sure that one of our partners within it can. Who are we helping and why? So we know that there are just under 6 million businesses across the whole of the country. 99% of those, well, just over in actual fact, are SMEs. So they all fall under the radar of cybersecurity, and the vast majority of those cases, they might not have had any help previously, they might have not reached out for help, and actually their cybersecurity and resilience may still be quite low. So they're really the ones that we are trying to target. We are trying to provide a trusted brand in order for somebody to come and speak to us so we can help them moving forwards. I've already mentioned we have got some affordable requirements for service-led delivery, and also we're trying to really extend our membership across the whole of the West Midlands region. So we've already built up to just over 300 members so far, but actually we transition those to different membership options depending on those needs moving forwards. But every improvement, so every interaction we have through all of our social media channels, through our one-to-one, through face-to-face, through presentations, each of it goes one step forward in terms of helping people understand cyber and increase their knowledge levels, but also put the appropriate resilience in place. So back to the map. So this is just to say really where we've come from and where we have just got to now. So before I showed you each of the regional organised crime units across the whole of the country, these are each of our resilience centres that we have got set up and established. Obviously, I'm not biased at all, but the best one is in the centre with the pink branding, West Midlands Cyber Resilience Centre. All of the others are pretty good too. But that's just to show you how we reach across the whole of the country, really. And you'll just see London, the smaller one that's obviously due to go live any time now. They're just putting in place their last plans in order to launch imminently. We also, I've mentioned, have got it says 75 on the slide. We are now up to 100 students across all of that region. So we've got local support, but we've also got a pool of resilience, a pool of those students. So actually, if we've got referrals and requirements in the West Midlands region, we can reach out to our students across the country. And some of the services that we do provide can be provided virtually. Obviously, since the pandemic, we have learnt to work in different ways. We've got ministerial support and planned national launches of CRCs and the Wealth Government launch. So a lot of our partners have actually said that they would like another layer of membership. So we are now working on that feedback to not just have regional members for each of the centres, but a lot of our partners that we have on board are national partners and they're also global. So it makes sense to put in place another layer to help support the resilience centres and have strategic partnership too, to support us and to support businesses in terms of understanding the needs of all sizes. So we also have advisory groups established in each of those areas. I spoke about the advisory group we've got in the West Midlands region, and also Cyber Essentials and Cyber Essentials Plus. And the Cyber Resilience Centres are already starting to win some awards in terms of innovation, partnership opportunities and increasing cyber resilience since we've been launched over the last couple of years. The West Midlands was about the fourth to go live, so we're probably about 18 months behind the North centres. We've worked from north of the country down to the south generally. And as I say, we were launched from West Midlands in July of last year. So we are now set up and fully established and now looking to grow our membership moving forwards. So next steps then. So I've just spoken about the journey in terms of policing, where we've come from, where now it's more of a law enforcement collaborative approach in terms of the NCA, regional policing and our local police forces. We've then moved on to actually realise we can't do it alone and we need to work in partnership with all sectors and work very closely with them in order to provide the right skills base and resources and work collaboratively in relation to the emerging threats and trends. But really, we're now looking forwards in terms of how can we expand this moving forwards. So I mentioned the launch of the London CRC CRC, which will be the last one to go live. And then moving forwards, we will be launching at the end of autumn this year the National Cyber Resilience Centre Group Company. So that is as a result of a number of the partners that we are involved in. A lot of those do span across the whole of the country. However, it might be their head offices in, for example, the West Midlands, and they elect to join the West Midlands CRC, but they want to now join in terms of a more strategic approach across the whole of the country, which we are actually really encouraging. So that will be going live over the next couple of months, and we have already got a cohort of national businesses that will be joining, and hopefully the idea is and the intention that they can support each of the local CRCs too and our partners. So the anticipated launch for that is in October, but that will also be not-for-profit, so any of the investment that comes into that centre will also go back out in terms of increasing resilience for businesses across the country. So, in terms of moving forwards, we still want consistency in relation to trust and confidence, which is really important. To me, it's really important in any area of policing. I've just come from a public protection arena, working in child abuse, working with vulnerable people, essentially in that area. But I must admit, it's equally as essential in the cyberspace as well. People do need a trusted brand, and people do know who to go to ask for help. And that's part of it, really. It's a starting point for that journey in order to increase that resilience. So in order to do that, we've looked at that as a network across the whole of the country and from a national point of view. And we've got a memorandum of understanding that was agreed between the MPCC and the NCSC. The NCSC recognise the CRCs represent a significant opportunity to expand the reach of the NCSC to smaller organisations. We've really helped them do that. So we support them in terms of that consistent messaging, making sure that they've got that wider reach, and we are an amplification partner for them. We also provide that link between NCSC and local businesses. I spoke about police forces can't do all of that. They haven't got the resources to investigate and to support. So we are the support arm of that, really. They will be the response and the investigation arm. We are the supportive arm and raising knowledge moving forwards. We also have police partners in each of the centres as a trusted brand. I've spoken about that. And the fact that we are a not-for-profit, which also does increase confidence as well in terms of we're not in that commercial space. So the intention is for the CRC network to be the go-to centre in each of the regions. And what we're trying to do is really expand our partners. We have partnered with Federation of Small Business, Chamber of Commerce, a lot of other membership organisations as well to make sure we can reach as many businesses as possible. Okay, so that's a whistle-stop tour in relation to the West Midlands as a CRC and in relation to the wider network across the country and where we intend to move to moving forwards. As you can see from the slide, I'm going to do a really shameless plug here now. Get ready. So we are on LinkedIn. Please feel free to follow us on there. If you want to take a picture of the slide, please feel free to do so. We're also on Twitter too. And our website is also on there too, wmcrc.co.uk. So if anybody would like to join as a free core member, then please just access the website and we will be able to then have a one-to-one meeting. But in the same token, it's also about spreading the message and promoting the centre. So if you are able to support and assist us in doing that too, then I'll be really, really grateful. Thank you very much for listening, everyone.
Thanks,